Welcome to the weekly briefing. I'm Jim Benton, CEO of Chorus, and I'm here today with Trey Boyer, VP of Competitive Sales and Customer Success at Hudl. Trey, thrilled to have you here. We're going to talk about getting from commit to close, forecast accuracy, and specifically looking at some of the data behind what we're seeing in the conversations that we've studied across the marketplace. But before we get in, how are you doing? How are you holding up right now during all of this?
Thanks, Jim. I'm looking forward to the conversation. Appreciate you having me on. I feel good. I feel energized. We were talking before we jumped on. We just left our weekly sales management stand up, and that always makes me energized. So I'm ready to go here.
Nice, I love it. We've had a great run at Hudl. Talk a little bit more about your role and Hudl and who you're selling to.
Yeah, so Hudl, we provide video analysis software for teams across the country, across the globe, really. So our organization specifically, our organization is competitive sales. So we sell to high schools, college teams, and then also club organizations. So think all the way down to a 6U team that's playing club volleyball, all the way up to your top end professional leagues and your top end colleges. I've been with the company about 8 years. I run our competitive sales team based out of Lincoln, Nebraska. We're a team of about 180 people, and we handle all parts of the sales cycle: cross-sell, upsell, new logo acquisition, but also customer retention and engagement.
Well, it's awesome watching just the progression you've had there. So appreciate you sharing these insights today. Before we get into all the data, we both had sales careers. When you think about commits, I'm curious if you go deep into your career, what was one of those first committed deals you had when you first understood what even commit meant, and how did that go?
Yeah, I think back, it was probably about 7 years ago. I kind of stumbled into this deal. I didn't even know it was really happening. Looking back, I was far too green to even understand where I was. Otherwise, I probably would have been much more nervous about it, to be honest. It was the first $100,000 deal we ever had in company history. Started organically, started from a meeting that I had that spun off and then was elevated. And I wish I could take more credit for it because it progressed rapidly. But yeah, we were able to push this through. We signed an entire section in the state of New York, and it was a huge deal. It was a huge win for my career, and it probably the single deal that still sticks out most within my head.
It's amazing how those wins do stick. Now, okay, so maybe on the flip side, it's easy to forget about these, but early in the career, or at what point in your career did you have one of those commits that, you've committed, you see it, and it didn't turn out? And what was the learning? What was that aha moment that you learned from?
Yeah, I actually think these ones stick with me longer. I think that maybe it's because they're learning lessons or whatever the case is. I think that these stick with me longer. But I would say that one that sticks out from early on, I thought that this deal was done. We've all had these before. They're ready to sign. You've gotten everything done. You've gotten pushed past. We've agreed on price and date and everything, and then it just goes dark, and then the prospect just isn't calling back or whatever the case is. And I think the biggest learning lesson there was, I don't think I was speaking to a true decision maker. I think I was speaking to somebody that wanted to please me and wanted to say yes. And I just didn't do a good enough job up front asking those difficult questions, making sure that I had the person that can ultimately make the decision. And that's something that stuck with me for a long time.
I think the difficult questions is the key that sticks out. There's honest, really getting into it. So just as we get into the data, one of the stats that we've looked at from CSO is that only 48% of forecasted deals end up closed won. So we're batting 50-50 on sort of the best case and forecast deals out there. I'm curious from your standpoint, what is the framework you use to forecast? What's your approach to forecasting?
Yeah, this is a great question. And when we originally connected yesterday, I went back and I validated some of our data to just see where we were in comparison. I had some ideas, I had some hypotheses, but over the last couple of years, we've been at about 56%, so slightly higher than the average, but nothing different.
Nice.
So yeah, we take a three-pronged approach to forecasting, and we've really developed this over the last few years. And I think it's led to a ton of accuracy for us because over the past 2 years, we've been able to forecast our annual targets within 6%. So on a $100 million business line, we feel very confident about our processes and what we're doing. So three-pronged approach. We start with a ground up forecast from our reps because there's nobody that knows their deals and the likelihood of close and whether or not they're going to get there better than the people that are working those deals from the ground level. So we ask them 2 questions. We do this on a monthly and a quarterly and an annual basis. We ask them what their commit is and what their best case scenario is, or what their best case forecast is. And so we frame that up. We ask the question, your commit is, if you were to put $100 bill on the line and basically make a bet with Jim, I'm having this conversation with Jim, the CEO, I'm willing to put a $100 bet that this is the number that I can get this month, let's say. And so we kind of use that as the worst case scenario, not worst case, but maybe the 85th percentile.
Sure.
And then the other side, we ask for the best case scenario. So we all have those deals that maybe need a little bit of work to get over the finish line, and we're not sure if they're going to fall in this quarter or next quarter. If all of those were to fall this quarter, that's your best case forecast. So that should always be higher than your commit. That gives us a range, both the top end and the low end of where we think we're going to fall. So that's our first piece. The second one, we use our data analyst team on our very talented revenue operations team to look at things like historical trends, to even compare seasonality and ACVs year over year to see how we're trending. And they produce another forecast for us on a monthly basis. And then the third one comes from myself and our sales leadership team. So we use our weighted pipelines within Salesforce, and we go back and we look at those and we compile those from the ground up from our reps, rolling up to our managers, rolling up to our directors. And then across those 3 numbers, we can feel very confident of a range of where we're going to be. And then we hone into a final number that we put on the line each month.
Love it. I appreciate you sharing that. I've heard about this machine that you built, Trey. Incredibly impressive. I also want to ask you, taking it maybe one step further, given kind of the period we're in now, as we look at sort of coaching our reps, one of the data points that we have on Chorus is that the median win rate of deals that reach the commit stage is 80%. So 80% of commit deals are closing. What I'm curious is, when you think about that 3-pronged approach you had to forecasting, have you had to change anything during this period right now and what we're seeing?
Yeah, COVID has been challenging, and our business isn't unique to this. I mean, I mentioned at the beginning, we sell to sports teams, we sell to athletic departments or club organizations, and if you follow the sports landscape at all, it's been in flux. You have Division I colleges that are canceling their seasons, or they're postponing and they're changing, and that impacts our business. That impacts when collections are going to come in, how long deals are taking, even how much individuals are buying in comparison to years past. So we've really scaled down the usage of our historical data because it's just not as relevant as it was in a normal sales cycle. We can't use the past 5 years of data because the selling environment is just not the same. So we've really had to rely on those first 2 pieces, the ground up forecasts from our reps and what they're hearing directly from the market. And then the second piece, using our data analyst team to measure pipelines, sales efficiency, so forth.
Gotcha. Well, I'll ask you at the end about how your outlook is for the rest of the year. But before we get there, let's talk a little bit more about the accuracy of commits. And what our data shows is that only about 43% of the reps are able to accurately forecast. They're hitting that median of 80% win rates, but 57% of reps are below average on the forecasting. And you'll see that tail as we look at kind of our data. They're well below the 80% on win rate. So it's a challenge for us. And I'm curious, on your side, what makes a great commit? What's required to be in a commit?
Yeah, this took us a long time to get to. This is something we struggled with for a long time. We would, we really were really elementary sales organization when I started in sales leadership, and we struggled with this. We had forecasting that was just all over the board. So we looked internally and said, we need to reverse engineer some of our deals, and some of our deals that are our best deals and the ones that are getting to close one and actually signing on the dotted line. What are the pieces of that deal that are the aspects that make that piece, make that deal what it is? And we just created some deal validators there that we go through, and we say, for a deal to be in the committed stage, for it to get to a late stage pipeline, you have to have these deal validators. Otherwise, the likelihood that it's going to close is just not there. So our best reps are the ones that stick to that process. They're the ones that check all those boxes, and they stick to those validators.
Trey, what would be some of the examples of the validators that you're using at Hudl?
Yeah, so just to give you some examples, you must have talked price at that point. We have to have, it doesn't need to be the exact dotted line, the exact dollar amount, but we need to have a range. We need to have a discussion around price. We need to talk about timing and the date. We need to ensure that we are talking to a decision maker that can actually make this decision. I referenced the deal that I lost at the beginning. One of the reasons was I wasn't speaking to the right people that could ultimately sign off on this. And then we also have to validate whether there are any other competitors that we're competing with, anybody that is an incumbent that we have to unseat. So those are a few that we use to validate, to push along those stages.
When you look at the reps that are great at forecasting, the 43%, what is it that they're doing? What's the patterns that you see from reps that are incredibly accurate in their commits? What do you see from them?
So it's really twofold there. The first piece is they do a great job with those deal validators. They stick to them. They're not straying away. They're documenting. They have documentation related to those so they can reference back to them. But the second piece is they really take pride in this, and they take time in this, and they partner with their sales manager or their sales leader to put a number on the line. It's not, we like to have ours in at the end of the week. It's not 3:00 on a Friday that they're slapping a number down and pushing that forward. They're having that conversation with their sales manager during the week. They use data to get there. Their sales manager uses data to get there. They have a healthy conversation about that. Sure. Right. It does us no good if we're putting a number down and we haven't challenged each other on that number on is this attainable? Is this too low? Is this too high? So I think that they do a good job of partnering with their sales leader. They view it as a true commit. They put it on the line, and then we have a process of retroactively looking back at those two. So once that happens, in the following month, we look back and we say, how did our performance, how did we perform to that? Were we high? Were we low? And what are the reasons why? Because then that provides coaching opportunities and how we can get better moving forward.
When we look at the 57%, those that are not as accurate on the forecasting, they're saying it's a commit, and unfortunately for all of us, it doesn't go that way. What would you say are the typical patterns you see on these commits that don't get over the line across your team, and how do we coach this team up?
I think, and I don't want to say that our deal validators are the silver bullet, but it's been consistent for us. These are the individuals, or the deals that are coming through where they just haven't checked the boxes that they need to. They haven't done the research. They haven't sold the value props and gotten the buy-in the way that they need to be able to do this. So we coach on it in a variety of different ways. We look at the closed loss report at the end of the month that we're at a certain stage, and we go back and we retroactively talk about it. But then we also use your product. We use Chorus to do those too. So we had 2 examples this week of 2 very, very large deals that would have really propelled us forward in our quarter. Unfortunately, we lost both of those deals. It's going to happen. We lose deals every day. That's okay. But what we did is we use those recordings, we use those write-ups. We went back in and said, how could this have been handled different? What can we do different so that we're ready for next time? But then we also take those reports and we spread those throughout the company. So we send them to our PM team, we send them to our GMs, we send them to other leaders on our marketing team so that we can change, adapt, be better, craft our marketing, messaging, whatever the case is, so that we can get these over the finish line in the future.
I mean, that's the best we can ask for in coaching, is just having that all in one spot. So appreciate you sharing that. Maybe just going a little bit into the sales velocity side of things. I'd love to get a sense of your playbook on how we look at velocity. So the couple pieces is we look at maintaining momentum between meetings. One of the things on this slide specifically is the July and August data shows an increase in the days in between when we're losing deals. And I'm curious from your side, what are the tactics? What do you do when you start to see that the momentum's being lost on your late stage opportunities?
Yeah, I'm going to give another hat tip to our revenue operations team here. They did a great job about 18 months ago. Again, we reverse engineered our deals to say, what is happening? What does a closed loss deal look like versus a closed one? And it's spot on with this information. The longer that we leave deals within single stages or without validating them or moving them forward, the more likely we are to lose. Time kills all deals, right? The age-old saying. So we try to use our tech stack to actually prevent that from even happening. So we use 2 pieces within our tech stack to ensure that deals just don't slip through the cracks. Because at Hudl, we're a very transactional team. Our reps do a lot of transactions. They're not working with 10 accounts. They're working with 300 accounts. So just the likelihood that something slips through is very high. So we use sales law, first of all, to ensure that all of our deals are in cadences, and there's pings to the reps, and there's also just automated communication that goes out to the client to ensure that nothing falls through the cracks, or we don't go too long without speaking to that prospect. And then the second one is we use exception reporting within Salesforce. So these are opportunities that haven't progressed, haven't had a meeting, haven't moved stages in X amount of days, and for that reason they're at risk. So that's a conversation point for the manager and the rep to have during a one-on-one, and then it gives them a follow-up list, a call list that they can check back in with the prospects too.
I love it. This goes right back to the machine of just putting all these pieces together. When we look at the closed won deals, so specifically here, we wanted to look at our data across the entire platform of the number of days between first call and last call. So it doesn't include sort of the energy it took to get to the first call and maybe the final closing, but as we break this down by segment, essentially deal size, I'm curious what you see. What's the data that you find within your team? Does it match what we're showing here?
Yeah, our data for our largest deals is right at 52 days from the time that the opportunity is actually open until the time that the deal is either closed won or closed lost. So that doesn't count the prospecting calls or what it takes to validate that deal and get it into our shape demand stage to get it there. So 52 days, and we have some of the same exception reporting for these pieces. So if it starts to stretch beyond that, we know that it's at risk. It's an aging report. That's a conversation that we have, and we need to go back and try to win that deal.
What would be some of the tactics that you'd use? So as you start to see things go beyond that, how do you attack that?
Mm-hmm. So within our organization, we're selling to athletic departments. So let's say a deal that we're working is primarily with an athletic director. At some point, we had a great conversation with that organization. We validated the deal. They believe in our value props. They're ready to move forward with us. And we lost them along the way for some point, whatever the case may be, but it's extended past those 50-day time periods. For us, we always go back. We call this building the army. We always go back in and we try to find another way into that organization to leverage it back to the decision maker to be able to reignite that deal, restart the conversation. So in that case, we might use a strong advocate within the school, booster club president, football coach, whatever it is, to get back to that AD. And, to take it away from sports, you might be having a great conversation with the director of sales, and then that person goes silent. Use the director of marketing, use the director of ops, whatever it is. Try to find another way into that organization to get back to the decision maker and reignite that deal.
Love it. I love that. We talk about these systems that competes, building the army. Maybe one last area is when we do look at the velocity of the closed lost deal. So days between the first call and last call for deals we lose. And I think the question here, especially even now as we're seeing, a changed environment is, do we need to disqualify sooner? How do we think about moving on from deals?
We always talk about getting to know faster. We always talking about lose quickly. So, the worst answer in my mind that a prospect can give is maybe. Yes is fantastic. We all want 100% yeses. That's just never going to happen. No is the second best answer, because then at that point, you can move on. You can start prospecting. You can find those organizations that believe in your value props and are better aligned with what you're doing and can find value in there. But we work in a very interconnected just market. Our coaches, our athletic directors, it's almost like a fraternity. So they're very connected. They talk a lot. So we always talk about losing with grace, and no is a no for now. It's not a no forever. So we need to be able to lose that deal, walk away, but still maintain that relationship, because we know that the systems or the set of circumstances within the organization could change tomorrow. We're going to want to go back and have a conversation with that organization again. The prospect should be leaving the conversation with us as a rep and feel that they trust that rep, feel confident in that rep. They got some type of value out of that conversation. Either we showed them something new or whatever the case, but we have to be able to lose with grace, because we know we're going to approach them and try to sell them in future years.
I mean, I love it. Those are the deals that show up as a fast sales cycle in a future quarter and can be the difference between, just barely making a number and blowing it out, which is awesome. Maybe in closing, Trey, I'd love to get your thoughts on just your outlook end of Q3, going into Q4. What's your view of the environment of the world right now?
So the sports world specifically, I'm much more confident. I'm much more optimistic today than I was 4 months ago. We have sports across the country that's coming back to play. If you're a sports fan, we have sports on TV for the first time in however long, which is just great. So us at Hudl, our business, our market is much more confident today than they potentially were in April or May. I think that's a microcosm of the entire market, though. It seems that people are, in most cases, are ready to buy. They're ready to have conversations. They're ready to move the conversation forward. But our market, I'll speak for our market, our buyer has changed. The way that we used to approach somebody in a sales process, our reps used to spend 30, 40, 50 days on the road, meeting with these organizations face to face. And now we're able to close deals just as fast and for the same dollar amount without actually even traveling, doing a Zoom meeting or phone call or whatever the case may be. And so it's forced us to rethink our sales process. It's forced our buyers to rethink how they buy, which I think is a great change for the market too. From a cost perspective, it's fantastic. But yeah, we're very optimistic.
I love it. I love the energy. Love to see people getting back out into the sports. Can't wait to see the kids and, in time, but awesome to see that. Trey, super appreciate you sharing these insights, really deep, thoughtful insights on the forecasting commit. So thanks so much for joining us today. And for those listening, you can access this recording and all the content at Chorus.ai. And Trey, have a great rest of the day. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Jim. This was fun.